Revenge films.
Most people forget their childhood memories as they grow older. But we tend to remember fun holidays or, in contrast, terrible events that took place. For me, the memory I have with my father is one of those things that I won't forget. When I was a child, my own father kidnapped me. My parents were already divorced at the time, and I was in elementary school. My father was abusive, which was why my mother left him. Whenever something bothered my father, he took it out on my mom. At first, he didn't physically abuse her, but soon he started to hit her. My mom didn't want me to find out the truth about my father, so whenever she sensed that his temper was rising, she would tell me to go to my room. When I got to my bedroom on the second floor, I would hear my father yelling at my mother. So when I found out that my parents were going to get divorced, I was relieved. After my parents got divorced, I lived with my mom. In order to gain custody of me, my mother had to work all day. She had a day job and another job at night. As a result, I would be home alone until around 8 p.m. for several nights out of the week. But I was happy that we no longer had to live with my violent father, so being home alone was not a problem for me. My mom said to me, "I'm sorry to have to leave you at home all by yourself." But for me, having a peaceful life with my mom was what made me happy. I knew that my mom was busy, so I helped out with the household chores. My mom was busy, but when we were home together, she would listen to my stories intently. She also made an effort to attend all my school events. I didn't feel that I was unlucky in any way. One day, on my way home from school, my father opened his car window and began talking to me. I was scared to see my father, but he said to me in tears,
"I'm going over to your house now to apologize to your mother."
I was still a child, and it was the first time that I had seen my father crying, so I believed what he told me. And so I got in the car with him. I realized that the car was heading in the opposite direction as my house.
"Where are we going?"
My father ignored me.
"I want to go home."
He continued to ignore me. My father continued to drive the car in silence. His face was very frightening. I regretted getting in the car with my father, but it was too late. I had no idea where he was taking me. I wanted to think of a way to get my father to stop driving.
"I need to go to the bathroom. Please stop the car."
But he wouldn't listen to me. I was more and more afraid by the minute as I had no clue as to where my father was taking me. What if he locks me up somewhere so that I won't be able to see my mother ever again? What if he hits me like he did my mother? I imagined all sorts of terrifying things that he could do to me. My father continued to drive the car with the windows firmly shut. After 2 hours had passed, my father stopped at a rest stop to go to the bathroom. I considered running away while he used the bathroom, but he grabbed me by the arm and took me to the bathroom with him. A man that was in the bathroom before us looked at me strangely. He then said,
"Your daughter needs to use the women's restroom."
At that moment, my father loosened his grip, so I ran away. I ran as quickly as I could to the women's restroom. It was the weekend, and the rest stop was very busy. The women's restroom was also very crowded.
"Please help me! Help!"
I cried out to the people waiting their turn to use the bathroom. One of the women then called the police. I stayed in the women's restroom until the police officers arrived. I didn't want to risk being taken by my father again. When the police officers arrived, I explained to them that my parents were divorced and that I lived with my mother. I also said that my own father kidnapped me on that day. I told them that my father was still at the rest stop. I went out of the restroom with the police officers, and my father was arrested on the spot. The police officers got in touch with my mom, and they drove me home. My mom was at work at the time, and she was devastated when she found out that my father had kidnapped me. She cried tears of relief when she saw that I was safe. I never saw my father after that incident, but he stalked me for about 5 years after that. Once I became a high school student, my father's stalking stopped. I didn't understand why he suddenly stopped, and it kind of intimidated me. I wasn't sure if he would start stalking me again, and I feared not knowing. It was 10 years since the last time that my father had stalked me, and my fear had gone away. I then received a phone call from my father's mother. She was calling about my inheritance. I wanted to understand where my father stood in all this. I then found out when my father's stalking had stopped. It was a stupid reason. He stopped because I was now taller than him. I was tall for my age, and I expected to grow a little more in the years to come. He only wanted to be with me when I was small and cute. When I found out about this, my fear for my father turned into disgust. My grandmother assured me that my father wouldn't be bothering me anymore. I wish I had found out sooner. I told my grandmother that I wasn't interested in inheriting anything from my father's side. I suddenly felt very tired, and the weight of the worry was lifted off my shoulders. I was traumatized for years over the fact that my own father had kidnapped me. Anytime I saw the same type of car that my father used when he kidnapped me, I was shaken. I was distressed about not knowing whether my father would try to kidnap me again. I had no idea that he had kidnapped me for such a horrifying reason. But after some time, I began to see the light. If I hadn't grown to be taller than my father by now, he would have still been stalking me. I was comforted by the fact that my father was so simple-minded. My mom probably realized that my father had a creepy side to him and wanted to protect me from him. I felt sad and grateful towards my mother. I don't think I can ask my mother about what really happened with my father, but I was sure that she had done everything in her power to protect me from my evil father. My mother felt even more precious to me knowing this. Now that I'm older, so is my mother. That's why I'm going to be the one taking care of her now. My mother and I continued to live together happily. We also heard some news about my father. It turns out that my father was arrested for trying to kidnap a little girl from a kindergarten. When he kidnapped me, the police let him off easy because I was his actual daughter. But this time, he went to prison. The parents of the little girl that my father had tried to kidnap wanted my father to pay for his crime in prison rather than settle the issue with money. I think that what they asked for was very reasonable. I'm also happy that my father got the punishment that he so deserved. My mom and I were right. He was creepy. It would be better for everyone if he stays locked up. Luckily, my father was arrested before he could do any real harm. If the little girl had been kidnapped, she would have been traumatized for many years just like me. I don't wish that upon anyone, and I want my father to spend the rest of his life in jail.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.